All right. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for coming on the show. Just want to introduce you really quick. So, this is Mario Leone of the Voices of Victory podcast show. And today I have Phillipe Deseck hailing all the way from Australia. And today's episode is Inside Hollywood's action films with Shang-Chi, Aquaman, and the Pirates of the Caribbean with stunt performer Phillipe Deseck. Now, Philip, if you could just take a hot moment and just go ahead and introduce a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there because we're going to have a whole bunch of wonderful interview questions to unpack for the audience there. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to do some of the stuff that you do, because I know firsthand from being on the other end of your rope and you pull. I felt it firsthand when I flew 6 feet back on a makeshift wire, you know. But tell us a little bit about
Excellent.
how did you get into all this when you started?
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Mario. I mean, I really appreciate this. My journey started a long time ago. Like, look, since I was really young, I've always loved action films. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan. I mean, they were my idols. I mean, I absolutely love these movies, and I was always intrigued as into how do they do all this stuff,
Yeah.
you know? But back in my day, there was no internet. There was, you couldn't get any information. So you just do the best you can with what you've got.
What you got? Yeah.
And I then got the opportunity to work on Street Fighter when I was in Thailand.
Okay.
And that was like early 90s, like 93, 94.
Who was the cast
And
in that? If I can't remember, who was the cast in that for that
so you got
original
Jean-Claude Van Damme. And
Jean-Claude Van
obviously you had,
Damme?
you had also Kylie Minogue was in it as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, you know.
Wow.
And Benny the Jet was there also.
Oh,
He
Benny
was
the
one of the cast members.
Jet. Wow. He's on, I see him. He's got his own little YouTube channel going on himself, doing his own thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was amazing meeting him and all that. It was just phenomenal,
Yeah.
And just to segue off, I mean, later on when I went to California, I did a training session with Benny the Jet, and that was phenomenal, really fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With that.
no,
Wow. That's good.
yeah, and
When what was like when you worked on that Street Fighter? What was like what do you recall from it? Like was the difficulties that were on the set? The hard parts of because I believe that was you had to travel a bit. Where was it? Where was the location for that?
so it was in Thailand, but I was living in Thailand at the time,
Oh wow!
and I saw an ad in one of the dorms that I was staying that they wanted extra people for Street Fighter.
Oh wow!
So I was teaching English at the time
Mm.
as a second language, and I went, oh, I can't miss that opportunity. And I thought this is my golden opportunity to actually work on a movie set and meet people, liaise with people, and I just dropped my teaching job. I went straight to work on Street Fighter,
Wow!
and yeah, it was
Were
the
you
best
doing
decision
any
I've made.
training while you were in Thailand? Were you training in any
Oh
of the
yes,
martial arts? You
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah, yeah,
at a
yeah,
time.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. So I was doing Muay Thai and Taekwondo and all that, So I
Wow.
was fully training, yeah, big time. And I've always trained. I mean, I've always trained since I was really, really young,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've
Absolutely.
always maintained and kept that up. Yes,
I mean, did
absolutely.
the environment there in Thailand, with the heat and the temperature, did that add any complications to the production, or not really? Everybody was kind of prepared for it.
Yeah, everyone's kind of prepared for it.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
prepared for that.
yeah,
That's pretty cool.
absolutely.
Now, you also worked on other notable films such as Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Tell me a little bit about that because I've never, yeah, I'm guilty out there. I haven't really watched it yet. So tell us a little bit about what that was like. How was that? What was your part in that?
So we played the opening scene
Okay.
when Tony, I believe it's Tony Chang, rides on a horse
Mm.
and he comes in and he throws his 10 rings into the soldiers. So I think we're playing like Turkish soldiers,
Mhm.
and then we scatter off the frame. We scatter off the frame, and and then he does a little fight scene, and then we all kind of fly out and do all our
You
thing.
do. You
So
do.
that was kind of it was the opening scene of the movie.
Was
That's
there a
what
lot
we
of
did.
wire work with that? Like, did you
Yes,
guys ever on
100%.
that
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I gotta.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and the tricky part was the timing of the wire work with the camera work.
Yeah. Yeah.
that was really tricky. Yeah, absolutely.
So you've done Marvel and DC. So you've done a little bit of because like Shang-Chi is relative to Marvel, and then you were worked on Aquaman. What was Aquaman like when you worked on that project?
Look, it was very different in the sense that so the role I played in Aquaman was I was one of the floating people in Aqua. Is it Aqualand?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe so.
So yeah, and the tricky part was that the costumes that we were wearing were super heavy, really heavy. Yeah, and we had to be on wires. And as you know, when you are in wires and you're suspended, you can only maintain that for X amount of time because of the circulation. Yeah. So that was a tricky part. Really tricky.
It does also speak, from what I remember, doing film work as well, is that it speaks to how costume can restrict your physical ability, wearing certain outfits. That's why it's so important for the costume designer to kind of mix and mingle with some of the choreo people, because of the fact that your knowledge could have a direct impact on how some of that costume is put together. I mean, sometimes it's great when the team works together because it can support your flexibility, right? If you had something that's very restricting, it could probably be difficult, right?
Yes, and not just flexibility, but also your vision. Sometimes you got to wear masks or you got to wear stuff, and you can't see anything. It's like, man, I can only see like 10%,
right?
And I have to run in a certain direction. It's like, like I've been in that situation, and you got to trust. In that moment, you got to trust the people around you to guide you and help you.
To help you along. Absolutely. Yeah. Of course, when you're lacking the peripheral vision, and either that, you're going to be getting used to a lot of the head movement to kind of catch your environment a bit, being able to do that.
Absolutely.
If the scene even allows for it, right? At that point in time. That's pretty wild. Now, I noticed you also worked on something like Elvis, which I don't know much about. Tell me a little bit about what that was about. We all know that Elvis was a Kempo guy, at the end of
Yes. Look, I really enjoyed working on Elvis. That was excellent. And it was very educational as well, actually.
Historical.
Because because what they did, which I thought was really cool, is that they got someone from the States to do a video call with all of us and talk a little bit about the history of the scene that we had to perform in. Because they were there at the time, they had the experience, and so educational wise, it was really interesting. So I really enjoyed working on Elvis. Yeah, that was a really good film to work on.
Yeah. Now, when it came down to Mortal Kombat, which I believe is the first installment of the more recent version, I think, what was that? It was a few years ago, wasn't the?
Yes.
So it was a couple of years ago. You did some pre-visuals. Tell us a little bit about, like, the audience doesn't know what pre-visuals are. Maybe some do, some don't. But give us a little insight of what pre-visuals you worked on and how that impacted the overall production. The production and
yes.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. So my job on that was to make all the storyboards for the previews. So the previews had already been made to a certain degree, and then I had to go in there, and from these previews, I had to make the storyboards for the second unit director, so that they had a visual on how to progress in the filming of it. So the previews are, when a movie comes, we make previews, which is the pre-visualization. So we look at the action, design the action, film the action, edit the action. So it's all the stuff that we do before the filming. So once the previews are done, all the action sequences are done, you present it to the producers, you present it to the director, they can have a look at it, and then they can see, okay, we like this, we don't like that, can we change this, can we change that? So we're constantly working on developing the action, and all that happens before they actually shoot the action sequence. So it's a lot of work goes into that.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost think of it as a visual blueprint that is going to give us the flow of the fight scene, the flow of the movement as it moves along with the story itself as well, and maybe even how much props go into it, how much environmental aspect go into it. Because with the previous, sometimes it's just for the the physicality of it, but other times you might have to calculate furniture or any environment on the set. What
Yeah.
does that look like?
Look, well, a friend of mine that I work with on a regular basis, and he's a really good friend of mine. He does a lot of previews, and that's his thing. He's like a previous wizard.
Okay.
And he just pointed out something really interesting, is that, back in the day, they would hire stunt people, and, we'd do the work that we were supposed to do. He says, but nowadays, when you look at a stunt department, it's almost like they are now a mini production department.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, we are working with all the different cameras, different lenses, green screen, mocap, visual effects. So all these things come into play, right? Yeah. So it's almost like a stunt performer nowadays has to kind of have those skill sets as well. So you're not just doing the physical, but you need to know basically how to put a mini movie together, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to, it's always been beautiful. You would agree, and I would agree. I think we could totally agree on this, is that like there's certain fight scenes that can be numbing and overdone. And then there's fight scenes that move the story forward.
100%.
That
yes.
Like, and one of my favorites, one of my all-time favorites, the 36 Chambers.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was a 1976 Gordon Liu film. And just because the action was so intense, but the storytelling behind it is what kept it going. Really kept it going. Even though it was an older film, it still had that essence of utilizing martial arts for the storytelling and moving the story forward. So it was very well done,
Absolutely. And like I tell all my students, because I do little workshops for classrooms and stuff, I always tell them, we are storytellers.
Yeah.
And even though we're doing stunts and we're just doing a fight scene, we are still telling a story. And that story has to be clear, visible.
Correct.
Right. And it's not always an easy thing to do, because we always believe that it's just a fight scene and it doesn't really mean much. We're just doing moves, but it's more than that. A lot more than that.
Yeah, and I remember when we did training that the eye contact was a huge aspect of it. Yes. Having that eye contact, having that communication, but the rehearsal as well, being able to rehearse the techniques and movements. Moving with your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having the concept of moving with your partner, that it's not like traditional martial arts where they are going against each other, but they're working in concert with their partner, which makes a massive difference.
Yeah. So I always tell them, no, we're not fighting against each other. We are fighting with each other.
Yeah.
Because it's my job to make you look good, and it's your job to make me look good. It's awesome. A dance, basically. It's a dance,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a rhythmic one too, because and it's a timing one as well. When you start working with the timing of things, the timing is fantastic with bringing that delivery, because it all impacts the delivery, the final delivery. When you worked on the Meg, so the Meg, I believe that was the Jason Statham movie, right? How was that? And was it, was it in front of a big giant green screen? Was it out in the middle of the ocean in some scenes? Like, was it a water park? Like, how did they do that?
Yeah,
I didn't see any scenes with that.
So that was filmed in New Zealand.
Okay.
So we went to New Zealand for that, and at one of the studios that they had, it was just a big water tank with a massive green screen around it.
Wow, yeah. That was huge. It was really big.
Yeah, massive, huge. Yes.
Wow. Now, in terms of the fight scenes that went down, or maybe, what did you work on in specifics with that, in that?
So we did all the water stuff.
Okay.
And again, for me, it was a different experience because I hadn't actually done much stuff in water at this stage, right? So when I got the job, I just started swimming heaps and heaps and heaps, and I love swimming. It's so good. So I got really fit water-wise, and that's the thing about stunts. I mean, when you are a stunt performer, especially for the Australians, I'm not too sure about the Americans, but we're very general. We do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
We don't specifically do one thing, So doing this, the water stuff was really interesting in the sense that the training that we did when we got there was phenomenal. Like we were super fit. Like they really put us through some heavy training for that movie. Yeah, and rightfully so, because in some scenes there were like 200 extras in the water as well, right?
Wow.
And it was really tricky, as into when we had to do our scene, we had to do it in combination with everybody else around you in the water.
In concert, yeah.
And it was there were some tricky moments.
Yeah. But they have someone with a bullhorn, I hope.
No, yeah.
Someone communicating over a loudspeaker, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And also underwater, you could hear it underwater as well.
Wow.
So they could, yeah. And so especially when we were on the pontoons, and some of us were in wires. So when the shark bites the pontoon, everybody kind of gets wired off the frame and jumps into the water. Sometimes they went really high, and then you had all people around you in the water. So like there were a lot of tricky moments, but look, overall everything went really well. And I think one of the hardest part was dealing with the cold, because we're in New Zealand, and when that sudden wind hits, it was like a blade hitting you. Man, it was so cold because it was a heated pool. But when you got out of the pool, it was like, oh my god,
wow,
it's freezing.
Like
So dealing with that was pretty tough.
I would imagine the certain conditions, right? Because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of environmental conditions that are out of scope of what you anticipate. I remember working with you on safety related stuff, and how much of a consideration when we're dealing with weather and environment, and when things get wet, how much that actually impacts the safety overall, especially if it's unanticipated, something that
is
out of that. But when it came down to, because I know you also did some stuff with Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Sword work? Was that sword work?
Yeah.
Not sword work? I can't, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that was I really enjoyed working on that, because they wanted a certain style as well with the sword work. So when we were doing the training and stuff, they wanted to see a certain way of moving and a certain style with the sword. And I thought, that was really interesting. It was really interesting working on that. Yeah. And it was a tough one as well. We had some tough days.
Which is temperature, locale. What was the locale? Do you remember?
No.
Location? Or?
So they shot it here on the Gold Coast, here in Australia. Wow. And we did a lot of night shoots. There was a lot of night stuff. So getting used to get into the night mode, that's another thing. Because you're and especially when we did it, like they would only use us towards the end of the shoot. So we'd be there like most of the night, and it was cold again. And then just before sunrise, they would say, "All right, guys, you're up." And then we'd all get on. And you've been like, you feel fairly tired because you've been sitting there all night in the cold. And then you got to pretend that you're wide awake and, you're full of energy. So taking that off and producing that energy is sometimes quite challenging.
Yeah.
But another challenging part was that they wanted to get as much footage as they could from us. So in one particular day, what they did is that they just kept the cameras rolling, and we had to repeat the scene over and over and over again with the sword scene.
Wow.
And that was physically really tiring. Yeah.
It was demanding.
And really demanding. So you see, people don't realize that even as a stunt performer, you have to be really physically fit, because sometimes you'll be asked to do stuff that you go, wow, I'm glad I put the training in. I'm glad I'm fit. I'm glad I'm at a certain level, because if I wasn't, I'd be struggling.
Yeah. I remember just in general, just training, how important, how massively important the cardiovascular is, and the endurance. Like, it's one thing to stretch and get that kind of stretching ability, being able to have that flexibility, but then you're going to have certain stunt folks that maybe can kick a little higher or kick a little lower, and they may step up to the plate and take something. But like, when it comes down to the endurance of it all, having that lung power, that wind power, to me, doing a particular routine over and over again, 20, 30, 40 times, because I think a lot of people assume that it's just going to be one take, 2 takes, right? And
correct.
When you get these independent directors that are very new, the hard part is having a group that is well rehearsed, that they've been rehearsing
Yeah.
the scene, the sequences, the fight over and over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
I remember when I did the short film. I did a Luke Captain America short film, and the two gentlemen who worked on that fight scene, they rehearsed over Zoom for 4 or 5 months. And
Mm.
when they finally hashed the sequence out, it was very well done. Like they did a very good job because they were constantly rehearsing over and over and over again. And I think that when it comes to production, time is money, and sometimes, how often do you see, in your opinion, where they just cut a scene out? Where they're just like, you
Oh,
know what, we're just gonna dump that.
yeah,
How?
it happens all the time.
Yeah,
It happens all the time,
yeah.
all the time. And unfortunately, the first thing gets cut is always the action sequence.
Is it really?
Very unfortunate. Yeah, yeah. Because the thing is, and like when I worked on Apples Never Fall with Sam Neill, they cut a lot of action sequences out of it, and it's not just a fight action sequence, but it also could be, for instance, a vehicle action scene.
Oh,
Right. So for instance, like, so that they look at the script, they look at the thing, and they say, well, how can we cut things down? Because they might be going slightly over budget, or they might want to save something, So let's say you have a scene where in the script it says the police car drives in to the neighborhood, stops in front of the car, the policemen step out of the car, walk to the house, and arrest someone, for instance. Let's say that's the scene, right? So they have a look at it and say, oh, well, how can we save on this, right? So we need stunt drivers to drive the vehicle into the frame, into the scene, right? And they say, well, let's forget about that and let's just put the car there already. Like the car has already arrived. Right. They will just get some extras to step out of the vehicle and arrest someone. See? And so that's how they cut things.
Yeah.
See? And look, and it makes sense from a production point of view and from a financial point of view, is that if they're looking for cuts, that, well, they'll cut the stunt man out and cut the driving in scene out and just have the vehicle already stationary and the people coming out.
Yeah.
See? So a lot of these things get cut constantly. They're constantly looking for those little cuts.
Yeah. And you've been doing this for 25 years, am I correct? 25 years.
Correct.
That's stunt work, action design, stunt coordination. You've done a bit of directing, a bit of fight choreography. You've done some driving. You've done some falls. And most of all, you've done safety as well. Safety, right?
Yeah, safety as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think is, like, when it comes down to all of that, like what was the biggest challenge, for you? Was it directing? Was it the coordination, working with people? What was the biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is from my point of view, because everyone obviously works differently. Everyone has a different experience, etc. But I think the biggest challenge is rehearsing. So, and especially when I work on my stuff, is finding enough time and to work on the rehearsals and to try and nut everything out before we actually start shooting. That's always the biggest challenge. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I mean, the beauty also too is, like, I remember, when they were busy recording their scene and you're not up there for a while, you're not up there for another 2 hours. You could spend just tons of time just rehearsing way off in the distance away from the set, being able to just, you're not burning yourself out. You're just kind of using your energy wisely in terms of rehearsing what needs to be done. Although sometimes you'll have full days that you rehearse. Talk about rehearsal. Like, what has been, like, you have your last minutes and then you have the rehearsals that take a few days. What is the when it takes a few days? Are they just longer sequences or more complex sequences?
Usually a more complex sequence, and also it could be that there are multiple people involved, and it's coordinating how those people are going to move on the day, because there's a lot of factors that need to be taken into consideration, and then sometimes we rehearse in a studio, and you got your white space, and it all kind of looks good, feels good, but then you go on set, like we did on Pirates of the Caribbean, and all of a sudden that space gets squeeze into a small area.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, how are we going to fit all these people in that small area? And how are we going to use the sword so we don't stab the person next to us? Or
right. Yeah.
so we have to be
It's
really
serious.
careful. Like, yeah. So that's when your peripheral vision comes into action. It's like, well, I'm doing my scene, but I'm keeping an eye on the guy that's right behind me because I don't want to, I'm coming around the sword. I don't want to hit him. I don't want to hit the person on that side. And things get really, really tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I've been talking to a lot of independent directors over the years, and one of the things I've always said to them is that even if they're new, they're new to the scene, they're new to the whole film scene. And I've always stressed, uh, make sure your people are so well rehearsed, because you could be reducing the amount of accidents that you're having. It's because when people are zigging and zagging in one angle and an accident occurs, it's lost time, it's lost money, and obviously injured people. You have injured people that you have to care about, and then you have the entire production schedule being set back as a result. Right? I mean,
yes, absolutely. And something that people don't really comprehend too, or or questions I get a lot is that if they are, for instance, directing a sequence, or they're in charge of a sequence, they've done all this rehearsal, and then all of a sudden on the day they go, oh, look, for your scene we only have a half an hour to shoot, whereas you'd planned 3 hours, right? So how do you
compress that.
How do you compress those 3 hours into half an hour?
Wow.
Right? And that's a really tricky thing to do. And that's when certain skills come into play, as into, okay, how can I now completely change the configuration of my camera work, of my performers, etc., so everything will come into 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another skill. And that I kind of teach people those skills as well, to how they can get, how they can achieve things. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, here comes some of the fun questions. What is the hardest hit you've ever taken that made you think that wasn't supposed to go down that way? What's supposed to happen?
Yeah. Well, I took a bit of a hit on Spartacus when we were in Ratchets.
Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much. It was a hard hit because what they do, they even though we're hitting the ground, they put mats underneath the ground and then cover it with earth.
Yeah.
So you still have a softer landing, but you can still feel it. But in one of them, I kind of went a little bit sideways, and my two legs kind of hit each other, and I could hear a little crack. I went, ooh, that wasn't good.
I've seen in some horror movies too, where someone's running through the forest, and they would take like a big accordion gymnastics mat and totally cover it with leaves and totally camouflage the whole thing, and then when they slam on the ground really hard, you don't really see it. You don't see it. They do such a good job of obscuring what's out there.
Absolutely.
Now, what is the like in a serious way, like which stunt hurt the most the following day? Like when it came to the next day, you felt it, maybe it carried over, after a period of time.
Yeah, so I worked on a movie, and we had to do a fight scene, and I had to take like a wreck, I had to do like a header, and I landed for some reason. It was filmed on the railway track, and I landed on one of the railway tracks with my hip, and I felt that
right across that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I felt that one. Yeah, and the next day, and I think I'm still feeling it.
Yeah. Did you have that? Tell us a little. Yeah, that's a good sidebar. Tell us about like recovery. Okay, because obviously there's people that get into the stunt work, and they have to be smart about the recovery, because a person could step in the field and be very brazen, very bold, and say, "No problem, I got this." You could be very overconfident, and you could get injured to where it sets you back for months. What does like smart recovery look like with that for people that enter the field?
That's a really, really good question, because we don't emphasize enough on recovery. And back even in my day, like we train, you get injured or you hurt yourself, you just keep going, right? Because that's just what we did. Okay. And reflecting on that now, I do wish that I had done it a lot more different, right? Because the recovery is super, super, super duper important. Because it's a longevity game. It's a
Yeah.
game that you want to try and stay in for as long as you can. And as you get older,
Mhm.
obviously, you're prone to more injury. Recovery time takes longer.
Yep.
So I would have focused a lot more on recovery. Like now, you have the ice baths, you have the red saunas, you have a
Yeah.
lot of things. You got a physio, you have all that stuff. And back in my day, I did none of that before in my day. I'm doing it now,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Of
it's
course.
still, it's a bit late
Yeah.
because I've had the injuries,
Yeah.
and now I'm just trying to deal with them.
Yeah.
In my in this time of my career, really, which is challenging, really,
Yeah.
really challenging.
Absolutely. Have you ever gotten up after a stunt and realized, oh, my finger's broken or something? It's bad. Have you ever had that? Knock on wood, if you didn't.
Yeah, yeah. So when I had that crack in my just above my knee, I went, "Oh, something cracked.
Oh,
Something definitely, And I did have like a fracture, a very small fracture. It was nothing
it was like a
too big.
hairline.
Yeah, like a hairline fracture. Yeah, but I still I just kind of wrapped my knee up really, really tight, and they said, "Can you do it again?" Yeah, no worries. And then I did it two more times. You know?
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What stunt scares most stunt performers the most, but the audience really almost never can tell. They can't tell from, but it scares the performers the most.
Yeah, well, that's and again, I think for every stunt person, that's going to be a different answer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because when we do stunts, we do what we do in our capability, in our scope of capability, right? So if they said, "I want you to ride a motorcycle," which I can ride a motorcycle, but I want you to jump over 25 cars. That's not me. I'm not going to do that,
Right.
right? But for someone else, it's I do that every day, So, do you know what I mean? So it is quite it's relative to the person and relative to the stunt that they're doing, to answer that question
Yeah,
truthfully.
absolutely. Now, when it comes to preserving your vitality, your physical vitality, because what you're really doing, you're not one of these people that just do a one-off film. You've been in it for several years, and you
Yeah.
have to think about going forward in terms of your career and longevity, the longevity of your health. How do you preserve your physical vitality for the long haul? If you were to give advice to someone who was just entering the field, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so it's important, and because especially at the start, I mean, you're not constantly working. You only work, you might have uh, 1 month job, and then you're not working for the next 6 months, right?
Yeah,
And then so it's not a constant. So it's important to constantly be fit,
yeah.
even though you're not working, right? A lot of people will only train when they know they'll get a job,
Mm.
right? But sometimes you could get a phone call today and say, "Hey, we need you
Tomorrow.
in New Zealand, or you know, I, can you come and do this?" So you have to be ready. And they said, "Oh, I haven't trained in months. Bloody hell, and you're trying to catch up." So yeah, and that's the mistake a lot of us make, and that's when you are more prone to injuries as well. So
Mm.
you have to maintain that physical ability, that physical fitness, and not just physical, but also your diet and everything. Maintain it constantly because you could be on call anytime.
And it's not just working out for mass; it's also working out for mobility, hip movement. The psoas muscles, the kneecaps, right? It's working out every aspect. Just not only just flexibility, but mobility, and just general range of motion in the shoulders. You have to consider the movements. If you're getting flung from a car, your body is going to be moving in
Yeah,
all kinds of
absolutely.
ways.
Yeah, and when you take car hits, you have to look like you're flailing in the air, and it has to look really dramatic. You got to give that dramatic sense,
Does
even when
that
you're
does
in a
that
high
require
floor.
some like you literally have to relax or act like dead weight to go through the air like that? Is that yeah?
That's right. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And you have to have that uh, physical ability in the air.
Yeah,
You got to be
yeah,
changing things when you're in the air, and that's another skill.
yeah. Yeah, I've
It's another
seen
skill.
guys where they move their arms like they're
Yeah,
flailing their arms around like they're in water, and they're being
that's right.
flung forward. Wow. Now, in terms, I have a great one for you. I love this one because I know you've done some firework, some work where,
Yes.
how does that, like, how do people actually safely, of course, we want to make sure that, everybody who's listening, we train safely, we play it smart when we're dealing with fire, right?
Yes.
How is it, like, what is the method in the industry? What is the industry standard, practically speaking, when there is a fire scene where someone is getting lit on fire safely in some way?
Yeah. So we use a thing called fire gel.
Hmm.
So that's a really big thing now, and that has developed over the years, and they've become really, really good at putting this gel together, right? So this gel kind of protects you from the fire. So, and especially when it comes to like bare skin, so it looks like your skin and your arms are on fire, but you're protected by this gel.
Mm.
And on top of the gel, they put fuel gel on top, and that what goes on fire. But you are protected by this gel, and you can see people that put a gel on their face, put everywhere, and you can have your face on fire, but you're still kind of protected from it.
And I would think that a lot of the scenes that go down are, it's like, okay, 10 seconds, go, and then someone's putting it out with a fire extinguisher 10 seconds
Yes.
later. Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. And there are signals that we give when the scene is done. So there's a lot of safety that gets involved in that. And the good thing is that sometimes the more dangerous the stunt, the less accidents happen, because sometimes the more dangerous the stunt, the less accidents happen, because there's a lot of safety measures that come into play.
Yeah.
A lot of safety measures and a lot of rehearsal, and everyone's always on really knows what to do. Yeah.
In terms of eating as a stunt performer, fight choreographer, in terms of eating, how do you eat in terms of eating for longevity of health? Because again, we're dealing with a long game career. How do you eat for that? Like, you specifically?
Well, for me, for me, because I'm a small build, right? So I'm always working on flexibility, agility, cardiovascular skills. So for me, I have a very high protein diet.
Okay.
So a lot of meat, a lot of fish, vegetables. Yeah, just to keep me lean and fit. Yeah. And a lot of other some guys are big. They got a huge, massive build, right? Because if you're doubling someone like Jason Momoa, you've got this build, and you got to maintain that build. So obviously, your diet is going to be very, very different.
Now, there's an interesting question. When you eat lunch on the set, and then there's a scene a few hours later, how's that? Is there like you get really exhausted and tired from that? Like, what's
100%, and you got to consciously say, well, look, I'm not going to eat much. I want to eat as little as I can. That's what I do anyway. I try not to eat too much, or I'll stay away from the stuff like rice or potatoes that make you feel a bit sluggish. Yeah, carbs. But when we worked on Spartacus, they had two different meals. They had meals for the general cast and extras, but they also had a separate meal for the stunt performers. For the people that wanted to stay lean, they had to stay lean. And for the actors, they had to stay lean. So we had two separate meals. It was really, really interesting because they wanted the bodies to stay lean throughout the shoot, right? And especially because there's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of exposed bodies. So they wanted to see like the muscles and the ribs, So we had a special diet on set for us.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Interesting.
Now, what is the highest fall you've ever done, and do you remember what movie it might have been?
Yeah, so I haven't done a fall for a movie, but I have done many for training, on training capacity. Yeah, and the highest I've done was a 50-foot backdrop. Yeah, that was.
So you had no idea what was behind you. You just went backwards.
Yeah, and that was really challenging. I can tell you, that was amazing.
All right, when you're standing on a ledge, and it doesn't have to be a cliff, but if you're standing on a ledge and you're getting ready to jump, what's the first thing that goes through your mind on the other side?
Yeah, it's like, well, what the hell am I doing? No. But truly, and especially when it comes to doing a stunt and you're doing something like this, for instance, you have to really psych yourself up, and that's when the professionalism comes into play. It's like, look, I'm trained for this. I was made for this. This is my moment. And you've got to really kind of psych yourself up and yeah. Look, for me, how my way of doing it is, look, I'm a professional. I can do this. This is what I'm made for.
Right.
This is my moment.
Yeah.
Right. And
Absolutely.
and once you have that, then you kind of put having a bit of fear is always good. It's always a good thing. You don't want to have no fear at all, because
it keeps you
and
safe. Safety.
it keeps you safe, right? And having that, so having a bit of fear is good, but you're not really focused on the fear. You're focused on doing the job. You're focused on hitting your target. Execution. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You need to land there. This is where you need to land. So this is where I'm going to land.
Yeah.
Right. And like I've done little smaller things, like small high falls, like nothing too big, but the tricky part was, look, they'll put a camera right there, right? And it's like, well, when I do the fall and I do the header over that thing, I need to make sure that I don't hit the camera guy or I don't hit the camera, right? And that's your focus, right? So you have to have that spatial awareness. You have to have all that stuff coming into play, and that's what you train for. You train for these moments, right? And sometimes it's not so much how big the stunt is, but it's how tricky is it, because there's a lot of trickiness in stunts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of things, and I know we've talked about this before. There's a lot of things you can go wrong in the stunt industry, in terms of maybe technology not working right, or something goes awry. And of course, there's probably accidents that do indeed occur. And like, being that you're an authority in stunt coordination, you understand how the stunts need to be executed. Have you ever had to have a conversation with an actor or an actress that really you had to stay very strong in your explanation? Like, hey, I know I know what you're doing, but please make sure you do it this way to protect them. Like, have you ever had that where you had to protect somebody else by explaining what you knew about the stunt and they didn't? Did you ever have anything like that?
Yes, I mean, sometimes I've worked with people who are not very sufficient in action, right? And that can sometimes be a problem. And then you're working with an actor who's very good, and then the two have to do a fight scene, right? So it's a very tricky conversation, because sometimes actors believe that they're more skilled than they are. And you just have to look, every situation again is different. You just have to read the person. It's more about reading people, knowing exactly, okay, how can I address this point with them? How can I address that point with the other person? Because the same point has to be addressed in two different ways, because they have two different personalities
and it's
two
about
different concepts
as well. Being professional, remaining professional, and being able to, because what you're really trying to do is come across with a caring aspect of concern. Like, hey, listen, we want to, because you all have to work the next day. This is something you've taught me, is that we all have to work the next day. And that means being safe about it, and making sure that everybody is kept safe on the set. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've done scenes with actors that have little regard for safety, right? So then now you have to then, when you are doing the choreography, then you have to slightly make changes so that it doesn't give them the opportunity to really hurt you. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And that could be a small very change in a move or something, right? Because if it's going to do an arm break, do you give him your elbow or do you give him more your shoulder? And those little changes can save you.
Yeah.
Right.
Not only that, it's also gonna put in the camera angle. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, what's gonna look better as the break on camera when the script calls for it? Like, is it gonna be at the elbow or at the shoulder? And you also have to consider the safety aspect for yourself. You know what I mean? That you have the safety, and then we have the actual execution. Beyond that, which is really good. What movie fight scene was physically exhausting for you, where you're like, okay, we've had it for a half hour?
Yeah, we really felt it on Pirates, definitely.
Yeah.
Because we had to do it over and over and over again. So what we're doing was not really complex, but we had to do it over and over again. And you're wearing these costumes. got all this makeup on, it's hot, you're tired, it's late at night, it's early in the morning, and it's like, oh my God, this is challenging. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. What's when it comes to stunt people? No, stunt doubles. All right. So, and this is a solid question for everybody, 'cause I think this is a question that I got hit with quite a bit too, and of course, I'm sure you got hit. When do they put a stunt double in, and when do they not put a stunt double in? As far as I know, having a stunt double is based on the actor and whether or not the actor or actress is insured. I don't know. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So obviously, the less risk there is for the actor, the better. Okay. And producers are always looking out for this. Whatever they think is a little bit too risky for the actor, will get a stunt double to do it for them. So that's kind of the golden rule, But and in Hollywood it's different too. For instance, in Hong Kong, there's a different level of safety, and there's a different level of expectation from the actors. Whereas in Hong Kong, the actors are expected to do a lot more than what, for instance, in Hollywood.
Wow.
Right. And which is interesting because it changes the whole way of filming as well. If you can do more with the actor, you can change the way you film it. If you got to hide things like they do in Hollywood, then you got to change that as well. Your filming methods have to be slightly different. So you always have to adapt to the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the biggest misconception people have about movie fights overall? Like the biggest misconception,
Oh, that's a good question. Look, sometimes they probably sometimes believe that I've seen people believe that they think it's all real.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
I've met some actors. I've met some actors, Philip, that they actually said, it was a boxing movie, and I happened to be kind of like consulting off on the side. It was just small, short, and they're like, "I want you to really hit me."
Yeah.
There are some people, right? Like you've seen that before, and I was like, I nodded my head, no. Like I told the director, stop him, no, don't do that.
Yeah. No, and look, and sometimes you do see real hits on screen.
Yeah.
Especially in the Asian stuff. But it's a real hit in a controlled environment. Right.
Timing.
Just to give you an example, like if I had to punch you in like in boxing terms, I'm coming in with, I'm not going to hit you. I'm going to hit you with as much power as I can from the shoulder. Right. But if you want to hit someone in real, you're not going to hit them with the power of the shoulder, but you're going to extend your arm as much as you can, and you're going to hit them at the extension of that hit. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Like just at the very edge. It's just like if it's right here, you're just almost right there. Like barely.
So you still have contact, but you're hitting at the end of the motion, as opposed to halfway through the motion. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have padding as well. I mean, obviously, I've padded up for some shots that I got in, and the illusion of throwing full force when it wasn't full force, but it looked like it was. The way it was presented, it's brilliant in itself. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
And that's,
oh, sorry, you first.
No, and that's something that's really hard to teach. Is how do you throw a punch with full energy and full force without using full force?
Yeah, it's hard,
right? And that's a really tricky thing to teach, and that's some people do it really well, some people really struggle with it.
Yeah, I mean the way that I hollowed my fist out a little bit, and just left a little bit of hollowness in there as a reminder to be relaxed, and just when it lands, make it look like, that of course your partner has to sell it, obviously they have to sell it
as well.
They got to make you look good, right? So it boils down to, what's the difference between a good fighter and a good stunt fighter in terms of, because obviously, there's plenty of great martial artists out there, but the difficulty they have is being able to change or alter their mechanics for the camera, right?
Yes.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah. And it's all about knowing what the camera is reading, right? And being okay, like a good stunt fighter is okay with things that don't feel comfortable, right? Or things that don't feel real. They're comfortable with that because on camera it looks real.
Yeah.
And with a martial artist, they want to do everything realistic. But when you do everything realistic, the camera does not always see it as realistic.
Mm.
And that's the big difference between the two, and that's the struggle that martial artists have making that transition into stunt fighting, because they want to make things look real and powerful, and so
Yeah, they want to go full blast sometimes, and they don't realize they have 40 takes out of them.
Yeah, and not only that, but the camera doesn't always see that way.
Yeah,
the camera might see it differently.
Execution.
So then, so then the stunt person will do it in a less realistic way, or a way that feels more not comfortable. But on camera, it will look a lot more powerful and will look more realistic, even though it didn't feel that way.
That makes sense. That's the amazing part about it, right? Now, in terms of driving stunts, like what's the craziest driving stunt that you've had to do in terms of that?
The craziest thing I had to do was to drive full speed at about a couple of feet away from the camera and the crew.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was tricky. Yeah, that was tricky. They said, just put your foot down and just follow that line, and and they had the camera there, the crew, and I had to hit that mark really, really quick, so I had to put my foot down really quick. We were doing the chase scene. There was there's also, it was tricky because the car that was behind me, the timing of it was very tricky because there's multiple cars involved, and they said just hit, put your foot down, and then come flashing past us. And it was late at night, obviously, early in the morning. It was dark. And when I did the scene, I had to do it a couple of times. The crew actually said, man, I could feel that wind just blowing away. It was like,
that's pretty awesome. Have you had some close calls where you maybe lost control, or it was a close call in some way?
No. Like, I haven't had that. Yeah. Good. Like, and I haven't had, like, I've actually on the last job that I did driving, I was driving a hearse. It was like 1960. Yeah. It was a 1967 hearse.
Yeah.
And the tricky part was that we had to drive in traffic, right? So I had a camera crew next to me. The tricky part was to maneuver in the traffic, and I had to be in certain lanes at a certain time because I had to exit certain places. If not, we'd lose a lot of time coming to number ones. And the vision, because I had a very limited vision on my side mirrors, because it was a really, really old car, and the tricky part was to maneuver through traffic to get to a certain spot. And even though we're not going fast and we're not doing much there, you see, again, it's not so much about how dangerous it is the trickiness of it, because my vision was very limited, and I had this massive hearse that I had to maneuver through traffic because I had to do certain scenes with it, with the camera crew right next to me. So my vision was very, very limited on one end, on one side.
In terms of difficulty, if you had fighting, driving, or falling, like what do you think is like the most difficult out of the three?
For me, probably the falling. High falls. Falling. Yeah, because you have to have that spatial awareness and that thing, and some people like do it so well. I'm not that one. I can do it, but I'm not really 100% at it. I'm currently working on driving skills, so that's what I'm working on at the moment. And also because as you get older, you're less required to do the physical stuff. So it's like, okay, so how can I still kind of be involved in industry and not use my physicality, but still be involved, So I thought, well, driving, I really enjoy driving. And I've got one of my mates here on the coast who's an amazing driver. He's a stunt driver, coordinator, and he's been helping me out with some driving skills. And I'm really, really enjoying them. They're really enjoying this. So I'm going to start taking my driving skills to the next level now.
Yeah, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of your mindset. That's always really impressed me in a great way. Is that you have a mindset of just the constant growth and development, which is really so pertinent for what you do. Which is like fantastic, because it's like, okay, I'm just going to continue to work on this no matter what. And in your line of work, there is that constant growth. It's not just physical growth, but it's also upgrading your skills, learning scuba diving and motorcycle and these odds and ends that, even a jet ski, right? Being able to utilize these. And your resume is probably going to be like a mile long with all these different items that you have to use, right? Which it
Yeah,
makes it
absolutely.
makes it interesting. But that's what makes it creative, and that's what makes like Jackie Chan and Buster Keaton.
Yes.
They used, creatively. They used objects very creatively. Like
Yeah.
I remember seeing Jackie using a feather duster. I remember that scene, right?
Yes.
We put the feather
Yes.
duster in the guy's face, and he sneezed, and it just changed the dynamic of things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what famous scenes are you most proudest of, even though maybe nobody knew it was you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually really proud of the Killer Elite
Oh, nice!
when
Really?
Jason Statham smashes a cup in my face. Yeah.
I'm gonna go
I,
find that tonight. I'm gonna go find that.
yeah. I really like that because not a lot of people know it's me, and I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh man, there was this really good scene, where this guy gets smashed in the face with Jason Statham. That was really cool." I went, "That was me," and they go, "What?
That's
What?"
awesome. That's too funny. That's too funny.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that moment, and also not just working with Jason Statham, but also with Robert De Niro, because
Robert De
Robert De
Niro.
Niro was in the scene as well, and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't even realize that Robert De Niro was in the movie,
Yeah.
because sometimes I don't ask too many questions on
Yeah.
who's
You're
going
there
to
to
be there,
work. Yeah, you're focused.
Yeah, I'm there to work, do a job, and who's there? Well, whoever turns up, right? And when I saw Robert De Niro's in the scene, I went, oh my god, I grew up watching Robert De Niro movies, and it was just,
Absolutely.
and he has that very intimidating look, and so, but it was amazing. I absolutely loved just observing them working as well, and it was just such an amazing experience for me. It was just phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really cherish that moment.
Have you done any stunts where the audience, you did a stunt, but the audience assumed it was CGI, but it really wasn't? Have you ever had anything like that?
No, that hasn't happened to me yet. But usually it's the opposite. Usually they, it is CGI, but they think it's real. Nowadays, it's so good.
That's too funny.
And that's what they do, right? But we've been doing this for many years, right? So like on movies like The Meg, Shang-Chi, they scan you, right? So you go into these devices and they scan you completely, and they CGI you into a lot of stuff, and sometimes you're doing stuff that you've never done before because it wasn't you. It was your CGI version, and that's been happening for many years now.
Have you ever like watched a movie yourself and then literally, you're watching it with a bunch of friends and family and maybe people, and they don't realize how dangerous a scene actually was?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes, happens all the time. Yes, absolutely, 100%. I mean, and even from my family as well. I mean, a lot of them don't even know that I've been in this scene or in this movie. They don't even know.
Yeah. Have you ever had any injuries that was just like the silliest injury possible, where it was like something small, but it wasn't a big deal? Anything that was just like you didn't know how it happened?
No, that's that. I've been really good in that respect. Yeah, because like I said, we do take a lot of safety precautions. And yeah, no, that hasn't happened to me yet. Yeah.
I hear you. What has been the one film where you had like the most adrenaline rush when the director just said action?
It was probably doing that car scene, like just racing it and saying, okay, now you got to hit your marks, you got to come at full speed around the corner, put your foot down, and it's like, gosh, I don't want to mess this up. I really don't want to mess this up. Yeah, that was that's pretty intense. Yeah.
Did you ever have like one stunt out of all of the stunts where like it was so dangerous you're like, no, just not doing it? Like you knew for certain with your clarity and your ability to be objective that you said like, no, this is a no-go.
Yep, I've had that one time. Yeah. And it wasn't something big; it was something quite small.
Yeah.
And it was jumping off the top of a car, but going backwards.
Oh, wow.
And there was a tree line there, and I thought, oh, if I land, and there was a slight slope going down. I said, if I land, I will not be able to control myself, and I could be potentially hit my head against one of those trees.
Wow.
Right. And I went, yeah, no, not doing that one. No.
Not doing
And
that one.
I still did it, but I modified it slightly.
Okay, so you just
Yeah.
made some.
And the tricky part was is that, you know, sometimes when you're on set, and that's sometimes a tricky part, you're getting directions from a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Right. The director has a vision, then they communicate that vision. Sometimes the AD will tell you something. Sometimes, contradictory. Then the stunt coordinator comes in and says, "No, hang on a second, we're doing it this way, that way." You know, so there's a lot of talking heads sometimes, and sometimes you're you know, at the last minute you're going to get directions from someone that's like, "Am I taking that direction from you? Do I, you know, was that discussed with the coordinator?" I mean, it's like, oh, you know, like I had it on thing as well, the Bluff as well, when I worked on the Bluff, and you know, at one stage, because things get really hectic sometimes, right?
Communication.
And communication is like, well, do I take that direction or do I take that direction? My coordinator said this, but now they're telling me that. So what do I do? And you know, sometimes you just got to do the best you can at the time, because like, well, I can't do two things at the same time.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just matters of just getting clear before they call action. Like, all right, I need to clear this up before we begin, you know, because I'm hearing X and I'm hearing Y, and being able to do that. And that's where, you know, you're in your authority and your confidence, because you've done so many different projects that you're able to really get clear with people, and that's a priceless attribute. It's a priceless trait. To be able to do the work you do, but also be able to communicate able to communicate to people on the set, and be able to make sure that you're on the right page with it all, you know?
And all that comes to experience as well, right? A lot of it comes down to experience. Right. And sometimes from your experience, you can make a more decisive decision as to what direction you're going to go in, because, you know, but that comes down to experience, and also safety, and a lot of things. It's not just the one thing, you know. And then sometimes you got to then say to the coordinator, well, look, you know, I'm getting directions from all these other things. Can you assist? You know, can you keep an eye on it, so that just before cut, that, you know, they don't throw a spanner in the wheel, you know? If you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So
now, if people want to first of all, if people want to reach you, they want to train with you, or they want to hire you on a project, how do they get in touch with you? And you know, do you do any directing as well? Like maybe you could.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've directed a few shorts a couple of years ago, which I really enjoyed doing, and I haven't actually put them online yet, but I'll do that shortly. I really enjoy the directing aspect of it, and I really also enjoyed the second unit directing aspect of it, because, you know, I really do enjoy the camera work and behind the scenes stuff as well, as in front of the camera. But yeah, they can contact me on my website, actionmoviemakerstraining.com. And I also offer several courses. So I've got 3 courses running. One is about how to stunt fight. One is about firearms safety, which is really important. So how to use a firearm safely on set, and how to shoot an action sequence. So I've got those 3 courses out for anyone that's interested. But yeah, they can contact me on my website, actionmoviemakerstraining.com.
And you've also done sport related. So outside of fighting, outside of Hollywood, you also have an eye, because it all relates to movement, and it all relates to the art of movement. And I understand you've also had some experience and expression towards sport movement. You know, that if someone wanted to hire you for, let's say, tennis or kickboxing or something that required several sequences, because obviously the cameraman may be equipped to capture the angles, but you would be there for safety and direction. Like, have you done any stuff like that as well?
Yes, absolutely. So when we worked on Apples Never Fall, all the action sequences that we had to do with tennis.
Yeah,
it was heavily.
Yeah.
Cool. And it was good because, I mean, I was a tennis player when I was young. And when I got hired for the job, I was really excited, because then I could get back into a little bit of tennis play myself, which I really enjoy. But it was an opportunity for me to film a tennis sequence and make it look exciting. So we did the previews for Apples Never Fall. So with the coordinator who was amazing, we hired, and he was really, he knew a lot about tennis as well, which really helped.
Yeah.
Right. Because his son was a semi-pro player at the time, and he hired all these amazing tennis players, and together we all sat down, put this sequence together, and I filmed it, and it was a challenge to make it look really exciting. You know, because you look at tennis on TV as a sport, and the shots are very standard. Very standard shots. So then I had to look at some other examples of films of, okay, how did they get those shots to make it look really exciting? How can you make a forehand look super dynamic? You know, how can you make a volley? How can you do a serve and make it look super, super dynamic? And then we'd use high angles, we'd use slow motion, you know, as the racket is coming up, then you use fast motion for the hit. You see the ball bouncing just to, you know, past the line.
Do you use a phantom at all? A phantom?
Well, if I had a phantom, I'd be the happiest person.
I know, the timing on those things are incredible.
Yes.
All right.
If I had a phantom, it's my dream camera.
Well, there we have it. I'm going to take your link, Philip, and I'm going to put it inside the description for my YouTube channel. And this way people can actually reach you through there. And he has an online course as well. He also has traveled the workshop circuit all across the U.S. and other places as well. I've worked with him firsthand. I can attest to it and tell you right off the bat that he's not only an authority in what he does, but he has a great old time, and he's a brilliant teacher. And I just wanted to share that and say thank you for coming on. I'm going to go ahead and cut it from here, and we'll see you next time. All right?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.
And it was great chatting to you, Mario. Thank you so much.